I'm Michelle with two L's, and I am one half of Force of Light Entertainment, and I am back for another Mandalorian review. Before we get started, though, if you have not yet hit the subscribe button, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. Also, give the video a thumbs up. But yes, let's get into my thoughts on, because I see a lot of people are having some strong thoughts on this episode of The Mandalorian, and that is Chapter 22, Guns for Hire. I believe I liked last episode pretty good. And if you guys have been watching, this season's been a little rocky for me, a little up and down, and kind of not as good as season 1 and 2. And for me, this episode definitely kind of continues that path. Again, I've seen many people already on Twitter proclaiming it one of the worst episodes ever, and definitely don't seem to like it. I don't have like strong feelings about this episode one way or the other, but I will say, as I've been comparing The Mandalorian to like Star Wars Rebels, this to me was like a bad episode of Star Wars Rebels. And the difference in Star Wars Rebels being each episode was only 22 minutes, and they had like 20 to 22 episodes per season. So if there was one episode you didn't like, oh well, there's going to be 21 more. And again, they were only like 22 minutes long. This one was about, I think, around the 40-minute range. And let's just say there were definitely times that I was starting to get bored with this one. And if this one is offensive at all, this episode, that's what I would say. It's just the offensive boredom at times. And I'll get into this episode specifically. But I think it goes back to something I've already said in some of these reviews. We've got 2 episodes left because there's only 8 episodes in these seasons. And this season, it feels very aimless 6 episodes in. Like we're just kind of going on these adventures, and they don't, like, there'll be little things like get Mando redeemed. Well, that happened by episode 2. Bo-Katan's arc, which I have enjoyed, and that kind of feels wrapped up to a degree at the end of this episode, even though I know there will be more with her. But for the most part, it has felt kind of aimless this season, and that continued, in my opinion, in this episode, because this truly was if you want to use the word filler, and I don't mind that. Again, I don't call something a filler episode for the most part if I feel there's been a lot of good character development that happened within that episode. But this was very much kind of an adventure episode, but where it stumbles for me, if you go back to episode 2 of the season, it was an adventure episode, but I loved it. I thought it was a fun adventure. It felt like a fun ride that I enjoyed taking with them. This was kind of, again, to me, a much more boring ride. It was a kind of boring adventure as they go to some random planet trying to find the Mandalorians we'd seen in the last season that have the Imperial ship Bo-Katan had taken over and had lost. But in order to do that, of course, they have to go on a mission, as has become very normal in The Mandalorian. And I don't have an issue with that necessarily. Just make the mission fun. Just make it a fun adventure is all that I do ask. And that's where I feel this episode did not deliver. It wasn't all bad. There was some little fun moments and cute moments in this episode. But overall, it was not a very good episode of The Mandalorian, even with it being more episodic, the way it kind of, or no, it's not episodic. It's more procedural. This is kind of like a procedural, so to say. But yeah, so pretty much this was about them. There's these rogue droids that are causing problems, and they've got to figure out, who's behind it and kind of stop this from going on. Again, on the surface, it's not, that could have been fun, I guess, but I think twofold. I think it felt like it went too far out of 6 episodes in where we're going. And then also, again, it wasn't a very fun adventure. We did have quite a few big cameos in this episode, and this episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who thus far has done a great job. And I can't say that she did a bad job in this, because TV directors have no say in the writing of an episode. They're just there to point the camera and direct. So I can't really blame Bryce Dallas Howard for this. But anyways, you had Jack Black, you had Lizzo, and you had Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future. Doc himself was in this episode, and I've seen some people already kind of laughing at some of the stuff. It did feel a little at times marvelous almost to me, and I mean that not in a good way. Some of the choices made, but overall, it didn't bother me. That none of that really bothered me for an episode of Star Wars TV. To me, the main thing is that the adventure just wasn't a lot of fun. Again, I said this about episode 3. I wouldn't really want to rewatch this episode. That's kind of where I am with that. It's not like if I was rewatching season 3, I might really either just fast forward to a few things or just totally skip it for the most part. Because everything, the beginning set up, that they were going to be messing with those, that Bo-Katan was going to go find the people she used to roll with in season 2. And then we get to the end of this, which did, pull the story forward. And that was Bo-Katan truly becoming the leader. They're establishing she's going to be the leader of the new Mandalore, wherever that is. If they really go back to Mandalore or not, remains to be seen. But she is able to be given by Mando the Darksaber back, and I was fine with the reason, because she said she has to win it in battle. But she did, going back to episode 2, when he was knocked out, get the Darksaber and use it to defeat the person who had him. So he says due to that she can have it back, and they all say yeah. I didn't have a problem with that. I feel like that's where we all knew this was going, because Bo-Katan, Mando just doesn't strike me as the type person or character that really wants to be the leader of Mandalore. And Bo-Katan is a good choice. I mean, her sister was the leader previously, and she's kind of from royalty. So all that was fine. It was all the stuff in between that was just kind of boring to me. Really, some of the stuff the only stuff I enjoyed was just kind of the cute Baby Yoda stuff. And I know some of you guys get annoyed with that. I don't. But as I said last week, I am wanting to see more of Baby Yoda or Grogu than just being cute. I mean, he did spend time with Luke. He was at the Jedi Temple. I am ready to see Grogu in more action, but all the stuff with him was super cute in this episode, including him being knighted at the end of it. That was really cute, the waving goodbye. So I enjoyed the Baby Yoda stuff. It was fun. And there was a comment, and this is why I say this episode is not offensive to me in any way. It just was kind of a boring episode. There's a point where Bo-Katan just shoots, or she doesn't kill the person, but she let's just say she makes it where the person can't do anything to them, and she just says politics, and I will say that I do still give Jon Favreau that this show doesn't try, in a day and age when it feels like there's so many agendas being pushed, even especially at a Disney owned, at Disney specifically. I think even that her shooting the person, just saying politics, I kind of think it was almost his way of just being that's not what this show's about. And it hasn't been in 3 seasons. It's been there to be family friendly and to entertain, as this type of stuff should be. So I do appreciate that from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this. I'm beginning to wonder, because I do believe, although I've definitely not hated season 3, but it's not been as good as season 1 or 2, in my opinion. And again, it has felt kind of aimless. And it just makes you wonder, kind of like with what has gone on with Marvel, was Jon Favreau just spread too thin? It's beginning to make me think because it wasn't very good. We definitely didn't need the Book of Boba Fett, which just took away from Jon Favreau having enough time to write a really good season of The Mandalorian season 3. So I wish they just would not have fooled with Boba Fett, kept him in The Mandalorian. And then I think you would have had probably a better quality. I'm for quality over quantity. And I think Jon Favreau just had too much going, honestly. That's kind of where I am at this point, because Book of Boba Fett felt very aimless too. Like they knew where they wanted it to go, but getting it there was a disaster, it felt like. And then in this case, I don't even know if they really know where they want to go, is kind of where this feels. And that doesn't mean that a season 4 of Mandalorian can't regroup and it be epic. I mean, I know you guys know I love my Stranger Things people, and I agree. Season 4 of Stranger Things was the best season since season 1. So I'm definitely believe things can get better even for the Mandalorian. But this season has definitely overall not been to the quality of 1 and 2 thus far. I hope the last 2 episodes are fantastic and great, and it leaves us, kind of having a high at the end of The Mandalorian season 3, because I do enjoy The Mandalorian. It's been a fun show thus far. But yeah, this episode wasn't quite it for me. I don't think it was quite it for a lot of people. But what were your thoughts on this episode, Chapter 22, Season 3, Episode 6 of The Mandalorian? Share your thoughts below. Where do you think this is going? Do you agree with me? It's a little aimless feeling. Share your thoughts below. And if you have not yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also, give the video a thumbs up. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right. Bye, guys.